Welcome, welcome, welcome to our spiritual morning. Let's start our beautiful morning by bowing in gratitude to all the divine beings that continue to surround us, that are around us. All these higher elements that have come from the higher realms above. Feel yourself in the middle of a large circle. And around you, feel the presence of your ancestors, of the teachers, gurus, guardians, angels, spirit guides, and many, many, many more spiritual higher beings, all of whom come to help increase their portion of light in our lives. Feel your energies rising as if your battery in your body is being completely recharged with the blessings that are now being given to us. And these beautiful blessings are so divine, so magical, that whatever blockage we have in our body simply opens up. Any physical ailment simply leaves us. Feel the love, the divinity. And as the cosmic energies are so high, because the blue moon has already begun, so whatever you desire is also being charged, energized, and being presented and packaged for you. So without doubt, simply ask for what you want. It could be for health, it could be for wealth, it could be for anything. It could be for your spiritual goals. Everything is being given. Feel the blessed energy in your body. Feel your body being recharged from Mother Earth as well. So that no matter how big you become, you'll always be grounded, firmly rooted to her. Your values will never change. Because your soul is eternal and your values are eternal. And you pride yourself on them. Let's be grateful for the clothes that we're wearing, for the clothes that we continue to wear. So much more collection. For the shoes, accessories that we may have, for the hygiene that we live in. There are hundreds and thousands of people who can't even afford to live the way we do. So be blessed. Let's be blessed for the food that we have. We have an option, we have variety. People don't even have one single grain a day. Let's be grateful to the Creator Brahma for creating us, to Vishnuji for preserving the good in us, and to Shiva for deleting, for removing, for destroying our vices, our bad nature, or any acquired habit which we're not proud of. If only we believe that whatever is not meant for us will leave us, so shall all of those, no matter how much we feel that we're addicted to them, and it's become a part of us. How do we shake ourselves out? The first thing to shake ourselves out would be to accept them, that they have come into your life to teach us a lesson. And we have to begin by accepting it. And when we do that, the shift happens. So much more has happened in our lives. Let's be grateful for every single thing. Let's make our hands, our hearts expansive. Open your hands and affirm to the universe, I am open and receptive to all the goodness, to all the abundance in all the realms that I live in. I am blessed. I am grateful. I am abundant. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. And now you can fold your hands, rub them together. Bless your eyes, your face, your neck, back of your head, shoulders, arms, front to back, back to front, upper and lower, chest, stomach area, thighs, knees, calves, ankle, feet. Turn your hands back to the backside of your legs. Keep coming up, lower to upper. Bless your hips, lower back, middle back, up back. And lovingly, let's open our eyes. Today we are on again the beautiful book, Only Love is Real. And we are here on chapter number 8. It's a very beautiful chapter, and we start this beautiful morning. It is a secret of the world that all things subsist and do not die, but only retire a little from sight and afterwards return again. Nothing is dead. Men feign themselves dead and endure mock funerals and mournful obituaries. And there they stand looking out of the window, sound and well, in some new strange disguise. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Human drama unfolds all the time. We think when it's death of a human body, it's the end. Not knowing, or maybe even knowing, that spiritually it's just freedom of the soul for a while until the soul chooses to again manifest into one life to further its purpose. But we kind of think that it's an end to a particular life. And we have our own rituals depending on what religion or what system are we following. But here, Emerson kind of gets us more familiar that these are all just mock. This is not something which is original, because truly, spirit is original. It's eternal. Dr. Weiss now continues saying, Both Pedro and I needed to learn more about the source of his underlying despair, which had been deepened even more by his brother's tragic death. We needed to understand more about the superficiality of relationships. Were his mother's constant criticisms of his girlfriends and the guilt of the abortion blocking this love? Or had he just not yet met the right woman? The regression process is like drilling for oil. You never quite know where the oil is, but the deeper you go, the better your chance of striking it. Today we were going deeper. Pedro had only recently begun to remember his past lives. Frequently, in the beginning, lifetimes are entered at their most dramatic points. This happened again. I'm a soldier, English, I think, Pedro shouted, observed. Many of us are brought in by this ship to capture the enemy's fortress. It's huge, with high and very deep walls. They fill the harbor with large rocks. We must find another way in. He became silent as the invasion was delayed. Go ahead in time, I suggested. See what happens next. I tapped him 3 times on his forehead in order to focus his attention and help him bridge the gap in time. We have overcome the rocks and we have reached the fort, he answered. He began to grunt and to sweat. Little tunnels, we are running through them and we don't know where we are going. The tunnels are narrow and low. We must go single file and bend over as we run. Pedro began to sweat profusely. He was breathing very rapidly and he seemed extremely upset. I see a tiny doorway ahead. We're running through this door. Ugh! He winced suddenly. The Spanish are on the other side of the door. They're killing as we come through, one at a time. They have stuck me with a sword. He gasped, holding his neck. His breathing became even more rapid. He was now gasping for air, and the sweat was pouring from his face, drenching his shirt. Suddenly, his movements ceased. His breathing became regular, and he was calm. As I dried his forehead and face with the tissue, the sweating began to diminish. I am floating above my body. I have left that life. So many bodies, so much blood below. I'm above that now. I'm floated in silence for a few moments. Review that lifetime. What did you learn? What were the lessons? He pondered these questions from a higher perspective. I learned that violence is a profound ignorance. I died seamlessly far away from my home and loved ones. I died because the greed of others, the English and the Spanish, were both stupid, killing each other for gold in faraway lands, stealing gold from the others and killing themselves for it. Greed and violence killed these people. They'd all forgotten about love. So profound, right? Human wars are happening for what? Just greed. Just satisfying the ego. I have more property, I have more land, I have more material stuff. And the process, what is happening? The humanity is suffering. The war is still going on between Russia. And just see what tabahi is happening everywhere. He grew silent again. I decided to let him rest and digest these incredible lessons. I too began to contemplate Pedro's lessons. Over the centuries since Pedro's senseless death in a fortress far removed from his English home, gold has changed to dollars and pounds and yen and pesos, but we are all still killing for each other for it. Indeed, this has been going on throughout history. How very little we learned over the centuries. How much more do we need to suffer before we once again remember about love? Pedro's head began moving from side to side on the chair. He had an amused smile on his face. He had spontaneously entered another, much more recent lifetime, Once Pedro began to remember lifetimes his usual experiences, particularly vivid. What are you experiencing? I'm a woman. I'm quite beautiful. My hair is long. I'm blonde. My skin is very pale. With large blue eyes and elegant clothes, Pedro was a prostitute much in demand in post World II War of Germany. Although the country was besieged by runaway inflation, the rich still had money for her services. Pedro had some difficulty remembering the name of those the elegant women. I'm very successful in this business, Magda said proudly. I'm a confidant to politicians, military leaders, and very important businessmen. She seemed a little bit vain as she remembered even more. They're all obsessed with my beauty and my skill. I always know just what to do. Magda possessed an excellent singing voice and often performed the elegant soirees. She learned to manipulate men. Probably all lifetimes as a man, I fought that did not say. Then Pedro's voice lowered to a whisper. I influence these people. I can't get them to change decisions, they do it for me, she said, impressed with her status and ability to influence these powerful men. I usually know more than they do. She went on somewhat ruefully. I teach them about politics. Magda enjoyed power and political intrigue. Her political power, however, was indirect. It always had to be mediated through men, and that frustrated her. In a future life, Pedro would need no intermediaries. One young man in particular stood apart from the rest. He is more intelligent and serious than the other. His hair is brown, his eyes are very blue. He's passionate in everything he does. He spends more hours just talking. I believe we love each other too. She did not recognize this man as anyone in his current life. Pedro looked sad, and a tear formed in the corner of his left eye. I left him for another, an older, more powerful and wealthy man who wanted me exclusively. I didn't follow my heart. I made a terrible mistake. He was terribly hurt by my action. He never forgave me. He didn't understand Mugda had sought security and external power, putting those qualities ahead of love, the real source of security and strength. Apparently, her decision was one of those that mark a turning point in life, a fork in the road that once chosen cannot be undone. Her older lover lost his power, German politics swung wildly to the violent new parties, and he abandoned her. Magda lost track of her passionate younger lover, and finally her body began to deteriorate from a chronic sexual illness, probably syphilis. She was depressed and did not have the will to resist the rampaging disease. Go to the end of that life, I urged her. See what happens to you. Who's around? I'm in a cheap bed in a hospital. There's a hospital from the poor. There are many other people sick and mourning, the poorest of the poor. This must be a scene from hell. Do you see yourself? My body is gross. Are the doctors and nurses around? They are there. They pay no attention to me. They are not sad at all. They disapprove of my life and what I've done. They're punishing me. A life of beauty, power, intrigue had ended on a low note. She floats above the body, finally free. I feel so peaceful now. I just want to rest. Pedro was silent in the chair. We would review that lifetime lessons another time. He was exhausted and I awakened him. The chronic pain in Pedro's neck and left shoulder gradually disappeared over the next few weeks. His physicians had never found the origin of the pain. Of course, they had never been considered a mortal sword wound from several centuries ago as a likely cause. Isn't that beautiful? Centuries ago, somebody's hurt on the neck and he has a chronic pain, and then he realizes the reason for it, it just disappears because you have had the healing. Because you now realize the reason why it was there. And when you learn to accept that, the pain goes. Similarly, in our life, whatever problems we have, if we accept them, they will simply fade. But if we resist them, they will persist. Like attracts like. That's the energy that's always being emitted. I'm constantly amazed by the short sightedness of most people. I have many acquaintances who obsess daily about their children's educations. Which nursery school is the best? Private schools versus public schools? Which college is the best? Which board with prep courses are the most effective? How to maximize grades and extracurricular activities to give their children an edge to get into that college, that grad school ad infinitum. Then the same cycle still start with their grandchildren. But these people think that this world is frozen in time, that the future will be a replica of the present. If we continue to chop down our forests and destroy oxygen sources, what will these children breathe in 20 or 30 years? If we poison our water systems and food cycles, what will they eat? If we blindly continue to overproduce fluorocarbons and other organic wastes and blow holes in the ozone layer, will they be able to live outdoors? If we overheat this planet by some greenhouse effect and the oceans rise and we flood our coasts and overstress oceanic continental fault lines, where will they live? And the children and grandchildren in China and Africa and Australia and everywhere else are just as vulnerable because they were all necessary residents of this planet. And consider this, if and when you reincarnate, you will be one of those children. How can we worry so much about SAT tests and college when there may not be a world here for our progeny? Why is everybody so obsessed with with living longer? Why squeeze a few more unhappy years of the geriatric end? Why the preoccupation with cholesterol levels, brand diets, liquid counts, aerobic size, and so on? Doesn't make sense to live joyously now, to make every day full, to love and to be loved, rather than worry so much about your physical health in an unknown future. What if there is no future? What if the death is released into bliss? I'm not saying to neglect your body. That is all right. To smoke or to drink excessively or to abuse a substance or to be grossly obese. These conditions cause pain, grief, and disability. Just don't worry so much about the future. Find your bliss today. The irony is that given this article and living happily in the present, you probably will live longer anyways. Our bodies and souls are like cars and the drivers. Always remember that you are the driver, not the car. Don't identify with the vehicle. The emphasis these days on prolonging the duration of our lives or living to 100 years or more is madness. It's like keeping your old fort going on past 200,000 miles, past 300,000. The body of the car is running out. The transmission has been rebuilt 5 times. Things are falling off the engine, and yet you refuse to burn it in. Meanwhile, there's a brand new Corvette waiting for you right around the corner. All you have to do is gently step out of the old fort and slide into the beautiful Corvette. The driver, the soul never changes, only the car. And by the way, I think there might be Ferrari down the road for you. How beautiful is that, right? So much more is coming our way, and yet we are stuck in the mundane, materialistic things of life. So, how much more can we do? Wonderful. Chapter number 9. As far back as I can remember, I have unconsciously referred to the experiences of a previous state of existence. I have lived in Judea 1800 years ago, but I never knew that there was such a one as Christ amongst my contemporaries, as the stars looked to me when I was shepherd in Istria, look to me now a New Englander. Henry David Thoreau wrote that. 2 weeks had elapsed between Elizabeth's appointments because she had to be away on another business trip. Out of town trips were not rare for her. The beautiful smile from which she ended her last session had faded. The realities and pressures of everyday life had once again taken their toll. Yet she was eager to continue the journey back through time. She had begun to recall important events and lessons from the other lifetimes. She had experienced a glimmer of happiness and of hope. She wanted more. She rapidly reached a deep trance state. Elizabeth remembered the stones of Jerusalem with their distinctive coloring, which would change according to the light of the day and the night, at times golden, at other times a tinge of pink or beige. But the golden color would always return. She remembered a town near Jerusalem with the smallest dirt and rocked roads, the houses, the inhabitants, their clothing, their customs. There were some vineyards and some fig trees, some fields where flax and wheat grew. Water came from the well down the road. Ancient oaks and pomegranate trees were near the well. This was a time in Palestine, as it always seemed to be, of intense religious and spiritual activity, of new changes, always the hope and yet the heaviness, the harshness of the days, of asking, eking out a living, of being oppressed by invaders from Rome. She remembered the father named Eli who worked at home as a potter, using water from the well. He created shapes from clay, making bowls, jars, and many other items for his home and for the village, and even some to sell in Jerusalem. Sometimes merchants or others would come through the village and buy his jugs or cookware or bowls. Elizabeth supplied many more descriptions of the potter's wheel, the rhythm of a father's foot on the wheel, and the details of life in the small village. Her name was Miriam, and she was a happy girl living life in a small village in turbulent times. Soon her life would be forever changed by the spread of that turbulence in her village. We progress to the next significant event in the lifetime, her father's premature death at the hands of Roman soldiers. The Roman soldiers frequently tormented the early Christians who lived in Palestine at that time. They devised cruel games merely for their own amusement. One of these games accidentally killed Miriam's beloved father. At first, the soldiers tied Eli around the ankles and dragged him behind a horse ridden by a soldier. After an endless minute, the horse was stopped. Her father's body was battered, but he had survived the ordeal. His terrified daughter could hear the soldiers howling with laughter. They were not done with him. Two of the Romans then wrapped the free end of the rope around their chests and then began prancing around as if they were horses. Her father lurched forward, his head striking a large rock. He was mortally injured. The soldiers left him in the dusty road. The senselessness of it all added to her piercing anguish, added a bit anger and hopelessness to her father's violent demise. This was not just sport to the soldiers, They had not even known her father. They had not felt that gentle touch as he attended to her minor childhood cuts and bruises. They had not heard his humor as he worked over the wheel. They had not smelt his hair after he bathed. They had not tasted his knees, his kisses, or felt his hugs. They had not spent every day of their lives with their gentle, caring man. Yet in a few terror-filled minutes, they had snuffed out a beautiful life and filled Miriam's remaining years with grief that would never quite heal, with a loss that would never be replaced, with a hole that would never be mended for sport. The senselessness outraged her, and the tears of hatred joined those of her pain. She rocked back and forth on the dusty, blood-stained ground, her father's large hand cradled in her lap. He could no longer speak. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. She could hear gurgling in his chest every time he labored to breathe. Death was very close. The light in his eyes approached dusk, the end of his day. I love you, father, she softly whispered to him, looking sadly into his darkening eyes. I will always love you. His dimming eyes looked back and blinked in understanding as they closed for the last time. She kept rocking as the as setting sun ended the day. Her family and the other villagers gently took his body from her so that it could be prepared. In her mind, she could still see his eyes. She was sure he understood. As I sat quietly, immobilized by the death of Elizabeth's despair, I noticed the tape recorder was not running. I put in the tape and the tape recording light flashed. He was recording. We were recording again. My Mina connected Elizabeth's current grief to the grief from Palestine nearly 2,000 years ago. Was this another case in which ancient grief was compounding current grief? Would the expression of reincarnation and knowing from there is life after death heal the grief? I returned my attention to Elizabeth. Move ahead in time, go ahead to the next significant event in your life. There is none. What do you mean? Nothing else happens. I can look ahead when nothing happens. Nothing at all, no, nothing. What do you worry? Do you marry? No, I don't live very long. I don't care about living. I don't really take care of myself. Her father's death had affected her deeply, apparently leading to profound depression and early death. I've left her body. What are you experiencing now? I'm floating, I'm floating. Soon she began to speak again, but the words were not hers. Her voice was deeper and very strong. Elizabeth could do what Catherine and very few of my other patients could do. She could transmit messages and information from the masters, high level, non physical beings. My first book is filled with as wisdom. I could perceive similar messages when I meditated, but the words always seemed to be meaningful when they came from my patients. I knew that I had to develop confidence in my own abilities to hear, to receive, to perceive these same concepts from these same sources. Remember, the voice said, remember that you're always loved, you're always protected, you're never alone. You are always a being of light, of wisdom, of love, and you can never be forgotten. You can never be overlooked or ignored. You are not your body. You are not your brain, not even your mind. You are the spirit. All you have to do is reawaken to the memory to remember. Spirit has no limits, not the physical ones, not in the limit of the physical body or of the reaches of the intellect or the mind. As the vibrational energy of spirit is slowed down, so that more dense environmentalists such as your 3D plane can be experienced. The effect is for spirit to be crystallized and transformed into denser and denser bodies. The densest of all is in the physical state. The vibrational rate is the slowest. Time appears farther in this state becomes because it is inversely related to the vibrational rate. Now get this very clear if you want to underline this, if you have a physical book. As the vibrational rate is increased, time slows down. So if we start resonating in a higher vibration, then light automatically unfolds magically, effortlessly. Because the vibration is so high, everything gets in alignment. The first level of the seven is that which is most important to you. It is important to experience in the first plane rather than to abstract and intellectualize about the higher planes. Eventually, you will have to experience them all. Your task is to teach of experience, to take that what is a belief and faith and transform it into experiences so that learning is complete. Because experiences transcends belief. Teach them to experience, remove their fear. Teach them to love and help one another. This involves the free will to others, but to reach out with love, to reach out with compassion, to help others is what you must do on your plane. Humans always think of themselves as the only beings. This is not the case. There are many worlds and many dimensions, many, many more souls that are not in physical containers. Sorry. There are many worlds and many dimensions, many, many more souls than there are physical containers. Also, soul may split if it wishes to and have more than one experience at the same time. This is possible but requires a level of development which most have not achieved. Eventually, they will see that life is like a pyramid. There is only one soul, and all the experience is shared simultaneously. But this is not for now. When you look back, when you look into the eyes of another, any other, and you see your own soul looking back at you, then you will know that you have reached another level of consciousness. So beautiful, so deep. To reach out with love, to reach out with compassion, to help over this is what you must do on your plane. Isn't that so profound? Humans always think of themselves as the only being. This is not the case. There are many worlds and many dimensions, many, many more souls than their physical containers. So wonderful. But in the 3D world, I'm here now. I just repeated some of the lines because they were deep. In the 3D world, reincarnation is as real as time or as a mountain or as the oceans. It is an energy like other energies, and its reality depends on the energy of the perceiver. As long as the perceiver perceives a physical body and solid objects, reincarnation is real to that perceiver. The energy consists of light and love and knowledge. The application of this knowledge is in loving way is wisdom. There is currently a great lack of wisdom on your plane. Elizabeth stopped speaking. Like Catherine, she would remember the details of the physical lifetimes, but nothing of the messages she delivered from the in between lifetime states. Both were in so much deeper level when transmitting those messages. Very few patients go so deep that amnesia is induced. Like Catherine, Elizabeth's message could help to correct the lack of wisdom on our plane. We would harvest much more knowledge before Elizabeth was through. My contact with the wisdom of the masters had been limited since Catherine was cured and her therapy ended. Yet, in an occasional, unbelievably vivid, nearly lucid dream, I will receive much information, such as lectures near the end of many lives, many masters. And sometimes the messages come when I am in deep meditative dreamlike state. For example, a system of psychotherapy for the 21st century was laid out for me, a system that is psycho-spiritual in nature and which could supplant the tired techniques of the past. The messages and images crowded my brain at great speed with fitting, brilliant clarity. Unfortunately, I could not tape record my mind receiving station, so the ideas are like precious stones. But the setting of my words, trying to explain and define the speeding, darting thoughts, is like dross. The beginning was a clear message. All is love, all is love. With love comes understanding. With understanding comes patience, and then time stops, and everything is now. Instantly, I comprehend the truth of these thoughts. Reality is the present. Dwelling in the past or future causes pain and illness. Patience can stop time. God's love is everything. Understand this very clearly. We are not that you don't know. We human beings are given a why we call beings. I have said this in the past and I say this again because we have to be in the moment. And the business of to be is in the ingness. Being. We are not called human beings or human to bees. Then why are we all the time reminiscing about the past? हमारे ज़माने में ऐसा होता था, we were like this, we were like that. Even if it's people who in the 30s, 40s, they also remember the younger times and say, this is what used to happen now. They compare past with present. They glorify the past and diminish the present. And when they go in the future, they make plans for the future and are stuck there. And then when they manifest, things don't come true because they don't have that feeling of happiness. They don't have that feeling of belonging. They're just in an illusionary world. So if you start bringing like the way it is and enjoying, savoring every moment of this life, then the life becomes magical. And then we raise our consciousness so much that whatever we want can be created. Instantly, I comprehended the truth of these thoughts. Reality is the present. Dwelling in the past or future causes pain and illness. Patience can stop time. God's love is everything. I could also immediately comprehend the healing power of these thoughts. I began to understand. Let's understand what Dr. Weiss is trying to make us understand. Love is the ultimate answer. Love is not an abstraction, but an actual energy or spectrum of energies which you can create and maintain in your being. Just be loving. You are beginning to touch God with yourself. Feel loving, express your love. How many of us express love? If we don't, ask yourself, should we or should we not? How many of us operate from the ego world? He hasn't done that. She hasn't done that. They haven't said this. Why should I? And how many of us think that we have no ego with children, but we do? Do we correct a child who's dropped something on his t-shirt or shirt? ध्यान से खाओ, गिराते हो. What are we doing? We are adding thoughts in his mind that he is not sufficient enough, that he is clumsy, she is clumsy. Let them learn from their mistakes. Nobody can else learn. Life is so positive. Do we live it like that? Love dissolves fear. You can't be afraid when you are feeling love. Since everything is energy and love encompasses energies, all is love. This is a strong clue to the nature of God. When you are loving and unafraid, you can forgive. You can forgive others and you can forgive yourself. You begin to see with a proper perspective. Guilt and anger are reflections of the same fear. Guilt is a subtle anger directed inward. What does that mean? You want to do something you've not been able to do. You are guilty. You're angry that ये नहीं हो पाया. And कहाँ नहीं हो पाया? मेरी वजह से नहीं हो पाया. And then you feel guilty. Guilt and anger are reflections of the same fear. Forgiveness dissolves guilt and anger. They are unnecessary, damaging emotions. Forgive. This is an act of love. So if something that you haven't been able to do, rather than feeling guilty, why don't you forgive yourself and say, okay, this wasn't meant to be, so it's happened like that. Easier said than done, right? But how truth? It's full of truth. Pride can get in the way of forgiving. Pride is one manifestation of ego. Ego is a transient, false self. You're not your body. You're not your brain. You're not your ego. You're greater than that, all of these. You need your ego to survive in the 3D world. But you need only that part of the ego which processes information. The rest, pride, arrogance, defensiveness, fear is God. You must transcend your ego and find your true self. The true self is the permanent, deepest part of you. It is wise, loving self, and joyful. Intellect is important in the 3D world, but intuition is more important. Take these back with you today. Not that you didn't know, but again, being reminded. You have reversed reality and illusion. Reality is a recognition of your immortality, divinity, and timelessness. Illusion is your transient 3D world. The reversal is damaging to you. You yearn for the illusion of security instead of the security of wisdom and love. You yearn to be accepted when in reality you can never be rejected. Ego creates illusions and hides truth. Ego must be dissolved, the truth can be seen. With love and understanding comes the perspective of infinite patience. What is your hurry? There is no time anyway. It only feels that way to you when you are not experiencing the present, when you are absorbed in the past or worried about the future. You being great, you bring great heartache and grief to yourself. So कौन लाता है problems? अपनी खुद की life में हम. और हम victimize करते हैं कि मेरे साथ ये हुआ because of that person, but actually it's happened to us because of us. Time is an illusion too. Even in the 3D world, future is only a system of probabilities. Why do you worry so? Therapy can be done to the self. Understanding is therapy. Love is the ultimate therapy. Therapists, teachers, and gurus can help.
but only for limited time. The direction is inward, and sooner or later, the the inward path must be trod alone. Although in reality, you are never alone. Why are we never alone? Because the soul is anyways inside us, and all the angel guardians which are connected with the soul are always overseeing that have we followed the direction of our karma from our decision when we took our soul worth. But so many of us forget that. Measure time if you must in lessons learned and not in minutes or hours or years. You can cure yourself in 5 minutes if you come to the proper understanding, or in 50 years, it is the same thing. So, time is immaterial. Awakening can happen in a second, or it may take years and years and years. The choice is always ours. Healing can happen in minutes, or healing can happen in years. Choice is always ours. Somebody will say, but I want to heal. It's not my thing. Yes, but you're not on the right wavelength, not on the right bandwidth. So, very, very important. The past must be remembered and then forgotten. Let it go. This is true for childhood traumas and past life traumas, but this is also true for attitudes, misconceptions. How can you see freshly and clearly with all of those thoughts? What you need to learn something new within fresh perspective. Thoughts create the illusion of separateness and difference. Ego perpetuates the illusion, and this illusion creates fear, anxiety, and tremendous grief. Fear, anxiety, and grief in turn create anger and violence. How can peace exist in the world when these chaotic emotions predominate? Absolutely beautiful, right? Just unravel, go back to the source of the problem. You are back to thoughts, old thoughts. Stop thinking, instead, ask your intuitive wisdom to experience love again. Meditate. See that everything is interconnected and interdependent. See the unity, not the differences. See your true self. See God. Meditation and visualization will help you stop thinking so much and will help you begin the journey back. Healing will occur. You will begin to use your unused mind. You will see, you will understand, and you will grow wise. Then there will be peace. You have a relationship with yourself as well as with others, and you have lived in many bodies and many times. So ask your present self why it is so fearful. Why are you afraid to take reasonable risks? Are you afraid of your reputation, afraid of what others think? These fears are conditioned from childhood or before. Ask yourself these questions. What's to lose? What is the worst that can happen? Am I content in the life the rest of my life has been in this way? Against a background of death, is this so risky? Is your growth to not be afraid of evoking anger in other people? Anger is only a manifestation of their insecurity, but fearing the anger can hold you back. Anger would be merely stupid if it didn't create so much of grief. Dissolve your own anger in love and forgiveness. Do not let depression, anxiety hold you back in your youth. Depression is losing perspective, forgetting and taking things for granted. Sharpen your focus, reset your values, remember what must be taken for granted, remember what should not be taken for granted. Shift your perspective and remember what is important and what is less important. Get out of that rut. Remember to hope. Excellent. Anxiety is being lost in the ego. It is losing one's boundaries. There is dimly remembered loss of love or wounding of pride, a loss of patience and peace. Remember, you are never alone. Never lose the courage to take risks. You are immortal. You can never be hurt. Sometimes these messages are much less psychological and seem to be from an older, more didactic source. This style is quite different. It is almost as if I am taking dictation. There are many types of karma, debts to be balanced. Individual karma pertains to the entity's own obligations, those unique to him. But there's also group karma, the collective debris of groups. And the collective debts of the groups. And there are many groups, religious, races, nationalities, and so on. At a larger level, there is planetary karma, which will in time affect the planet's destiny and outcome. In group karma, not only an individual debts are accumulated and worked through, but the outcome is eventually applied to the group, country, or planet. The application of such group karma determines the future of the group or the country, but it is also applies to the reincarnating individual, both within the group or country, or simultaneously and intersecting, but not within, or at a later point in time. Action becomes right action when it becomes action along the way, along the path towards God. All other actions, all other paths are eventually blind alleys or illusions, and individuals' spirituality and action along those paths is not the right action. Thus, right action promotes the individual spirituality and his return. Action that fosters justice and mercy and love and wisdom and the attributes we call godly or spiritual is inevitably right action. The fruit of right action is a desired goal. The fruits of action along the other paths are transient, illusionary, and false. These fruits entrap and deceive, and they're not what we really desire. The fruits of right actions encompass all our goals and wishes and all that we need or desire. Fame is an example. He that seeks fame is an end in itself, may achieve fame for a while, but that fame will be temporary and will not gratify. If, however, fame comes to the one unbidden as a result of right grief, right action along the path, that fame will endure and will be proper. So, what does it mean? Action becomes right action कब? जब जो भी हम एक्शंस ले रहे हैं वो भगवान के रास्ते जा रहे हैं विच मीन्स व्हाट लव लाइट काइंडनेस कंपैशन जो भी हमें अच्छा फील कराता है बट अगर हम किसी भ्रम में जी रहे हैं कुछ दूसरे एक्शन पे कर रहे हैं जो हमें भगवान के रास्ते नहीं ले जा रहा देन दे जस्ट नॉट गोइंग टू हेल्प अस इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि हम ईगो को साइड में रख के सोचें कि व्हाट इज गॉड्स एक्शन not what makes me feel better or something, but what is the right action. उसका फल क्या मिल रहा है ये अगर सोचेंगे तो कहाँ जाएंगे. These fruits entrap and deceive. They are not what we really desire. The fruits of right action encompass all our goals and wishes and all that we need or desire. अच्छा करेंगे अच्छा होगा. That's the fruit. You'll feel good about yourself. Like Dr. Weiss gave an example. Fame is an example. He that seeks fame for as an end in itself may achieve fame for a while, but that fame will be temporary and will not gratify. If the path, the fame will endure and will be proper, but to the person on the path, it will does not matter. There's a difference between fame sought selfishly for the individual and fame unsought and not desired, a byproduct of right action. The first is illusion and is impermanent. The second is real and permanent. Adhering to the soul, the first accrues karma and must be balanced, the second does not. Sometimes the messages flash by very quickly and succinctly. The goal is not to win, but to open up. Then, as if his or her turn came again, more from the psychological source of the rapid fire impressions. God forgives, but you also have to be forgiven by people and you have to forgive them. Forgiveness is also your responsibility. You must forgive and be forgiven. Psychoanalysis does not repair the damage. You still have to go beyond understanding and make changes, improve the world, repair relationships, forgive others, and accept the forgiveness. Being alive is seeking virtue, is of the utmost importance. Lip service is not enough. Intellectual understanding without applying the remedy is not enough. Expressing your love is. How beautiful. Now it's time for us to go deeper. And for this, let's just again try to let our own higher self speak to us rather than a guided meditation. So for this, what we have to do is I'm going to initiate you into this, and then you have to continue on your own. So take a deep breath in and gently close your eyes, straighten your back, get in a comfortable posture, and just see if you can become 5% more comfortable. If you have any kind of a bodily pain, then that will keep superseding your meditation. Take a deep breath in and a deeper breath out. Breath in, breath out. Love is everywhere. Love is the reason I'm built. Love is the reason why the soul has chosen me as a vehicle. I, being the driver, have been given a choice to choose or not. What am I choosing? And get tuned with your higher self and ask the question, guide me, O light. Fill me, O light. Teach me, O light. You are the bright soul that has always been and will always be. And right now you have chosen my body to further your purpose. Now, what is this purpose? Am I already on the lines or not? Tune into yourself, ask these questions again and again. What is the purpose? And if you get a download, just write that down. It may not make sense, just write that down. For the children who may be taking the session online, you're in a good space. Close your analytical mind. For the elders, just simply drop all logic, all doubts, all fears, and just go inward. Do not stop. I request you. Be connected. Be blessed. Take at least 10 minutes minimum, going up to half an hour or longer, and find what is there in for you.